Yes, welcome to the Planning Committee, Tuesday, the 19th of May 2026. As we're in a new council year, as Mayor, start the meeting with the first item on the agenda, which is the election of a chair and deputy chair. Just before I go into that, I will just read the preamble regarding the recording of the meeting. This meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the Biddulph Town Council YouTube page. The aim is that decision making should be transparent and in the public domain, which will involve more of our community and local democracy. By being in this council chamber, you're consenting to being recorded with your images to be added to YouTube. The images and sounds may be used for training purposes. Any views expressed on the speaker's own and do not necessarily reflect the view of the Biddulph Town Council. Please view the guidance on recording in public meetings policy if you need more information. So the first item of business is election of chair and deputy chair. Can I have any proposals for the position of chair of the planning committee? Councillor Rogers.
Madam Mayor, may I propose Councillor Jim Garvey for this matter here, please, as the chair of this committee?
Do you have a seconder for Councillor Garvey?
Second.
Councillor Redfern. Thank you. Any further proposals for chair? No. All in favour? Excellent. So, Councillor Mayor.
Sorry, can you just note that I didn't vote because I'm not a member of the committee, not because I don't support Jim.
Councillor Garvey is the new chair of this committee for another year. If you can take over the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So welcome everyone to this evening's Planning Committee on Tuesday the 19th of May. We now have to the election of the Deputy Chair, and do we have any nominations for the position of Deputy Chair of the Planning Council yet?
Yes, unfortunately, Councillor Hopkins is unable to be here tonight. However, he is quite happy to be put forward as Deputy Chair. But as he is absent, if anybody else does want to step forward and volunteer, he is quite happy to stand aside. But I'll put him through as a formal nomination for that.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for Councillor
I'll second
Hopkins? Yes, Councillor Jones seconding that. Do we have any other nominations for the position of Deputy Chair of the Planning Committee? I think that would be a no. So can we have a show of hands for Councillor Hopkins? I think that's unanimous. Okay, right. So moving on. Item 2, apologies and approvals of any substitute members. Obviously, we have Councillor Hopkins' apologies. Do we have any other apologies, Chief Officer?
Yes, Councillor Fletcher and Councillor Ward, and no substitute members.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to number 3, declarations of interest. Does anyone have any disclosable pecuniary interest or dispensations to declare? I'll take that as a note. Any other interests to declare?
Just on the final item on the agenda, I've been approached by the applicant that's gone for appeal just to speak on their behalf. So I think that's probably worth recording as an interest.
Okay, yes. In that case, if we can record that, and then when we get to that point, we'll call on you to speak on that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, so moving on to approval of the minutes of Planning Committee held on the 21st of April 2026. These have been through the Town Council, so are we happy to accept those minutes?
Yeah.
Looking at the proposal, please. Councillor Hawley, seconder. Councillor Yates, a show of hands, please. Okay, thank you. Just butter amongst yourselves while I just sign this off. Thank you. Moving on to the substantive items on the agenda. Item 5, standing agenda item to consider any proposed site for local listing. Do we have any?
Not quite any new sites, Chair, but I have been contacted by the representative from Staffordshire Moorlands District Council, the officer there, to say that they have revised the form. So if we do want to put in any additional nominations, there's now a new one for that. So that's timely because we do. Last meeting we agreed to some additional nominations. So I'll now put these on the new form and then let you know progress in course.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay. So item 6, to consider a new definitive map modification order consultation. The documents were provided. This is essentially to update the definitive plan, but footpath map for footpath 13, still 13, to a bridleway. We have got this paperwork within.
It is.
Yes, okay.
Somebody will explain on the map, please.
Right, okay, on the definitive footpath map.
Yeah.
Okay, right, so, if I can review, and I can put it up on the screen for us all. This, I think, is in your neck of the woods, councillor, Rogers.
It is, but I'm still not clear, like, unfortunately, which one we're back to talking about. So,
Okay, right. Yeah. Business, this one's Middletown 13 then. Okay, right, so basically, it's this footpath here that runs from Wedgwood Lane up through the Beacon House Farm, joining on to Mow Lane at this end. So that path is currently designated as a footpath, and the proposal is to modify it to be a bridleway. Councillor Rogers, you have a comment?
yeah, so it's in my neck of the woods, and well, no concerns to be fair. It is a footpath, as you say, like we say at this moment in time. Beacon House Farm, as it says, is a farm. Do they want horses walking through their grounds?
It's currently a footpath that are currently rights of way through that. This is simply an upgrading of it from a footpath to a bridleway, which will allow for different traffic. So I think that'll allow horse traffic. Equestrian.
I understand that totally, but, you know, would you want horses coming through your land? Your garden,
I think
your garden.
I think that would be a matter for the occupant of Beacon House Farm to register their dissatisfaction with, rather than I think it's now council. I've got Councillor Smith and then Councillor Erdl.
I'm all for upgrading them to bridleways because I think it gives that safer route for people on horses. Sometimes, you know, it can be unsafe on the roads where the cars are, and I think if it takes them away from that sort of route, I'm all for that, giving them safer routes to travel on.
Right, thank you. Councillor Erdl.
Certainly, if I'm reading it right, that cuts out a chunk of my lane into from Wedgwood into Ireland, which is always.
Okay, we could zoom back out of it. Yeah, so essentially what it's doing is it means there's a bridleway for equestrian traffic from that way rather than going up is the Mow Lane.
Yeah, my lane's used quite a lot.
Busy road.
Horses coming up down. It's also a really busy road.
Yeah.
And it's things like you come down there, around the time bench and there's horses. Go from, you know, like Smith said, from a safety perspective.
Right, thank you. So I think there's a general consensus here so far that from a safety perspective, we wouldn't oppose this. Councillor Yates, I've got Councillor.
I hear what you say from a safety perspective and whatever, however, that particular footpath is styled just above the farm. It is an ancient trackway, because it's quite a sunken path with hedges on both sides, which is relatively it's not uncommon around the Gully there. The only reservation I have is it's a very wet, especially where it goes to the park, which in the diagram is the iron double L in the Edge Hill part, which is now sort of disappeared. Well, if you zoom out slightly as opposed to zoom in. You can see that where the edge, where the hill is there on Edge Hill, that was very, very, very sodden. And I would be concerned about the upkeep of it, to be perfectly honest. I know that is not what we're determining here, but it's a very, very well used path. And I wouldn't want it to be made impassable 6 months of the year because they've one or two horses using it, to be honest.
Okay, right. So you have concerns about the long term, the maintenance of it.
Yeah.
Councillor Salt.
Thanks for allowing me to speak. Obviously, I can't vote on this matter. But bridle way also equals cyclists. So that means cyclists can freely use that route as well. Again, from a safety perspective, it's great that cyclists have got an alternative to going up Mall Lane. But yeah, cyclists can use bridle paths.
Thank you, councillor, for that additional information. Councillor Hawley.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, it's a footpath. I mean, and effectively what we're talking about is turning it in, obviously, for cyclists and for horses. I'm concerned more about people actually walking on there, potentially, rather, you know, when you've got horses going on, and cyclists, I think it can become dangerous for the pedestrians. And that does worry me a bit about turning it into a bridleway.
Okay, I understand that. So, in terms of our feedback to the county council on this matter, would it be fair to say that we support the idea of having a safer route for horses and cyclists to avoid that particular road? However, we would register concern about the effective maintenance of that route and the safety of pedestrians on it. So for them to consider that. I've got councillors Salt, Yates and Jones coming back again. So,
Well, not me.
but no, it's not sorry. Yates and Jones. Sorry, Madam Mayor. Can I go to Councillor Jones first? He hasn't spoken on this one first. Yes. JJ.
what I was going to say.
It's okay. It's okay. I'll come
No,
back.
I was just going to say what was going to be said about safety. I mean, it is, there's a lot of horse traffic around that neck of the woods, and I think anything that takes them off Mall Lane's got to be a good thing. As for cyclists being able to use it, cyclists are not supposed to ride on the pavement, and nobody stops them. You know, I do what you're saying, Councillor Salt. I think whether it's a footpath or a bridleway or a pavement, the cyclists want to cycle on it, they cycle on it. So I don't think that's really relevant. And as regards the upkeep and the maintenance, that's not really for us to decide. We are deciding on a right of way here, a level of a right of way. And I don't think there's any legitimate reason not to send it through NAC.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Smith, you wanted to come back, and I think Councillor Yates, you put up your hand up briefly.
I think the argument to be made is that it's apparently already an alleged route that exists and is being used as such currently. This is just a general question in response to that. If it's designated as a bridleway, surely the county council then has obligations to maintain it as a bridleway rather than a footpath.
One would assume so. And therefore, by the county council designating it such, they are undertaking the commitment to maintain it in its new status. So I think that should be taken, I would suggest, as a Councillor Yates, you're going to add additional information to the site.
I think it's like a right parenting duty of the landowner to maintain.
Okay, fine. So in that case,
They will get access to grants for specific things, you know, but that's on an adult basis.
So in which case that changes completely my thought process on it. If it's not currently, as Councillor Hawley was saying, if it's not currently in a state that can be used for horses and it's restrictive because of pedestrians, I would say that would change what my thought process towards recommending.
okay, right. So I think in that case, are we collectively veering towards the it needs to, while we would not object to it, it needs to ensure that it is a suitable and safe route for the modified traffic.
I'll go with that.
Okay, Councillor Rogers.
Yeah, can we suggest that somebody does a site visit? Because looking at it on a map, you can't determine, can you really? I can fill in the SMDC. I think they should really.
County Council.
County Council site should just have a site visit. I know it's not easy to do, but I think it's quite important, really.
Okay, but I think, so I think what we're saying here is that we don't object to it in principle, but the county council needs to satisfy themselves that it's suitable for that use before they undertake
Yeah, you
that.
can't do that for lack of.
Just a question, if I may, Chair. Where's this come from? What's been the catalyst of this?
It simply says in the letter we've received that the county council have received an application to upgrade part of public footpath 13. We don't say you'll apologise if my screen keeps going off, but unfortunately.
Yeah, point of information, we have had quite a few of these in the past. Where people have actually wanted to upgrade footpaths and we basically have comments.
Yeah. Just coming back, Chair.
Yeah.
To the right, there's already a bridle path, which acts as the route.
There's a small one here, yes.
Yeah, if you zoom out, it'd be interesting to see where it starts and finishes, because it's actually a good one, that is, because it goes up to Neighbourhood Plan.
Yeah.
The concern I have about sending people there, I wouldn't advocate horses going up Mile Lane full stop. I rarely advocate cars, which I own, going to Mile Lane, never mind the horses. But the reality of it is, you've got to look at the egress of where it comes out. It'll come out on quite a dangerous bit. Where would they go? Go down and then turn around and come back, or do the egress life and then go down and Granny Back is actually euphemistic. But notwithstanding that, the other thing I was going to add is that to make an informed decision, you really need to go up and have a look at this, because it's almost part. I think in another life, this could have been Mount Lane, because it is an ancient path which has got a sunken pathway, and I can see the virtue of it coming back to what its original use was, which I can imagine did have horses and pack horses and things down. But it's gone out of use, and it is in a very poor condition, certainly over the late autumn and winter months. And I think it really does need a site visit to go with something like this, eyes wide open. It didn't take many horses or electric bikes that completely destroy the surface for everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Yates. I think that's the point that Councillor Rogers was making. So I think, again, going back to our response would be that while we don't object in principle, we would request a site visit for the county council officers to satisfy themselves that it is suitable for the change of use.
Well, the countryside and rights of way, of which the chair is a county councillor in this area, so it should be quite easy for him to pop down and have a look.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Smith, and then that's going to be the councillor.
Just amend that response to say, as a council, that we have concerns about the current state of the public footpath and its appropriateness as a bridle lane.
Okay, so do we in that case object in principle, or do we not object in principle but request a site visit to ensure that it is suitable because we have concerns regarding its current fitness for purpose?
I'll say, well, that's it.
Yeah, okay. So are we happy with that, Councillor Hawley? Did you want to come in on something else?
I'm basically sort of saying is that as far as I can see, and the noises that are coming out of that, is that we seem to have major concerns about it, and to actually say that we don't object to it, and that we don't object to it in principle. I think we should be actually saying we have concerns about this, and effectively we shouldn't actually be saying whether we object or whatever, but we have major concerns about this.
Okay, in that case, can I suggest that what we say in that case is that while we welcome the opportunity to take equestrian traffic and bicycles off the roads, we have reservations regarding the suitability of this route, and therefore would request the county council do a site inspection to ensure that it is fit for purpose. Are we all happy with that as a modified proposal? Someone to propose that? We've had that. Okay, from Councillor Hawley. Seconding Councillor Yates, taking a show of hands for that response. Thank you very much, everyone. For
How many times is Sarah right to sentence and cross that out then?
I think the nature of the debate within this committee is such that we welcome the opportunity for the debate being fully like we have.
Absolutely.
That particular matter. Going back to the agenda. Right. Moving on to item 7, planning application. We've got quite a few to go through here, and then some of them are not that simple. You will have received the summaries. Starting, drop that one there. Right, starting with application SMD 2026-0178. Mr. and Mrs. Douglas of 75 Rudyard Road, Biddulph Moor. The proposed development is a first floor extension to a bedroom with alterations to the existing roof, proposed balcony and alterations to the external wall finishes. There was no pre-application advice. It is in the green belt. In fact, what I need to do on this little map over here is indicate the green belt. Some of you, particularly the Biddulph Moor Council, will be aware of the location of this on Rudyard Road. BNG is not applicable because it's a household application. Essentially, the proposal is to extend the first floor of an existing two-storey extension to match the larger ground floor footprint. The roof line would be modified to provide a coherent lower pitch, double pitched roof over the original ground floor, where the original ground floor had a flat roof. And that will then be, which was used as the balcony, but provide a new cantilever balcony to be added to the rear of the property on the first floor extension. Materials, the walls are existing natural stone with white grey render. It's proposed that the extension will have white grey render to match. The roof is existing clay tiles, and it's proposed will be clay tiles to match. Windows and doors, no details were specified. The design access statement argues that the development in the green belt is appropriate if an extension is not disproportionate increase, but acknowledges that this extension is over 30% increase in volume of the original building. However, as this application is smaller than the extant approval, there is a previous approved planning application for another ground floor extension of this property, then it should be allowed. Their argument is that the previous lawful development certificate for a further ground floor extension with a single storey extension to the rear of the property was approved and permitted development in January of this year, following two plan revisions. That hasn't been constructed, and this alternative is offered. This is an alternative, but they're using the original proposal as a fallback. In terms of neighbourhood plan policies, the only one applicable is design, and I think we would probably say that from a design point of view, it meets our criteria in that the materials and finishes will match. It's removing a flat roof and providing, say, an increased gable pitch, which is a more coherent design for the surrounding properties. This is the property here. Do we want to look at the plan for this property? This is the this is the proposed extension. Actually, the dotted line here shows this area is currently a single floor extension. It's going to extend the top floor over that area, and this, which was originally the balcony, there's an extra balcony being added on the back, and then there will be a double pitched roof over the whole area. The recommendation essentially would be to send it with no adverse comments, subject to but referring to the planning officer for subject to compliance with the Greenbelt regulations, and that whether the extension is disproportionate or not in size over the original dwelling. Do I have any speakers on this? Councillor Jones?
Not much to say, really, Chair. I think it's improving the place. It is percentage wise, perhaps a little bit on the large side, but it's a tiny place, and obviously just want to make it more habitable.
Yeah, I think
it improves the look of the place. It gets rid of the flat roof, which I like. I'm happy with NAC, Chair.
Yeah, okay. I would like to add the caveat in terms of subject compliance with Greenbelt regulations.
Oh yeah,
obviously it is in Greenbelt, and that would be a concern. But as they have a lawful, essentially, this area here with that dotted line there, that is the original footprint of the house.
Yeah.
This, with the whole second floor extension now, is the increase in size, which is why it is greater than 30%.
Yeah.
But the previous extension, which essentially added a similar base to area for this onto the back of the single floor extension, is, in fact, if anything, a greater increase. So, Councillor Hawley.
Yeah, I'm just going to basically move what you actually recommended to be
Okay.
quite honest.
Okay, so effectively, no adverse comments be referred to the planning officer for compliance with the Greenbelt regulations and a disproportionate size over the original building. Happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay, can I have a proposer in Councillor Hawley? you seconding that, councillor Jones?
Either way, how do you want to do it?
Okay, fine. And then, a show of hands, please. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Right. Up here. Off me now. Okay. Okay, so moving on to SMD 2026-0193. Hello. This is 38 Chamberlain Way. Yeah, right. Okay, so Mr. and Mrs. Gosling of 38 Chamberlain Way, proposed front and rear single-storey extensions, including an entrance canopy and internal alterations. No pre-application advice. It's not in the green belt. It's a household application, therefore no penalty is applicable. It's a modest single-storey extension to the front and rear of the property with internal reordering to extend the kitchen into the existing utility room and convert the garage into a new utility room and boot room with the addition of a larger porch and bringing the property line forward. It's proposed to widen the drive to retain two vehicle parking side by side rather than a linear fashion. That's because the garage will effectively move, or the garage will move forward about a metre or so, shorten the drive. Walls are existing facing brick, it's proposed to match. The roof is existing profile concrete tiles, and it's proposed to match. Windows, existing UPVC proposed to match, and the doors existing composite, and again proposed to match. There are no additional statements provided with it. There have been two previous approved planning applications, SND 1989-1280, with an extension to form a fourth bedroom over the existing garage, which probably would be the fourth bedroom. An SND 2002-0538, a single-storey rear and first floor side extensions, but no plans are available for either of those on the system. Let's have a look at this one here. Hopefully this will load. Okay, so in terms of the neighbourhood plan policies that are impacted, I would suggest that DES 1 and DES 2 are relevant to this application. From DES 1 design, the materials to match the existing and they're very similar modifications to a neighbouring property. Number 36 has a similar change. However, my concern is that the extension on the extension now may mean that it is disproportionate relative to the original property volume and therefore may be overdevelopment. So I have a concern regarding that. In terms of the modification to widen the drive to accommodate two vehicles on the shorter drive, however, SMDC policy requires 3 designated off-road parking spaces for a 4-bedroom property. This is essentially this extension over the top is additional to the original building, but what they're essentially doing is bringing from the front of the garage, where there's currently effectively a porch sort of version, that's going to be extended and bricked to the front of here. The existing porch is going to extend beyond that again with a larger porch, but at the back there will be a further extension at the back. The concern is that by taking the garage out, that means there are only now 2 available parking spaces. So I don't believe that complies with DES 2 for public realm parking. Regarding compliance with DES 1, I think that's a planning officer decision to make. Regarding DES 2, the loss of garage and reducing the off-road parking to 2 spaces, I think that doesn't comply, and therefore my recommendation would be to refer to the planning officer for compliance with a caveat that refusal because it doesn't provide additional parking. Councillor Hawley.
Well, I would say basically, if it isn't meeting the grounds and parking spaces, specifically, it should be refused.
That would be my recommendation.
I don't think there's any ifs, buts or anything else. I mean, basically it said there should be 3,
yeah,
but there's only 2, and therefore I would say it should be refused.
I think the quick key question here is because we're, finally got it here. It's interesting that in the plans that they've provided, they have not provided a first floor plan. They've only provided a ground floor plan. I can see why in terms of it's only the ground floor that's being modified, but this would effectively hide the potential for how many bedrooms there are and therefore they would need to comply. So the inference is that the additional extension originally over here to provide an additional bedroom. I'm making an assumption that this was originally a 3-bedroom property from the size and the location it would seem appropriate, and that would be the 4th bedroom, and that is the point at which 3rd parking space becomes a requirement. So I think so my recommendation was to refer it to the planning officer to confirm these things, but otherwise refuse them. So I think we're on the same page on that one. Is there anyone, Councillor James?
I just wanted to ask you a question. When is a bedroom not a bedroom? I mean, my bungalow started off as 2 bedrooms. I extended it to dormer, and now it's 4 bedrooms. But 1 bedroom is used in an office, and the other bedroom is used as a dining room. So it's 2 bedrooms again. So is it 2 bedrooms or 4? I just wonder. It's a moot point. They could say, "Well, it's a games room or it's a cinema room."
This is my concern. Is that there's a degree of subterfuge going on here. I can't assume that, but that's possible, which is why I think it's incumbent upon the applicant to demonstrate that they comply with the policies, and we should recommend refusal if they can't demonstrate that. So that would be the recommendation going forward. I think I'm proposing that. I think Councillor Hawley is
What goes on as concerns? Yeah, absolutely.
okay. Are we all happy with that now, Dave?
I think basically it might be worth actually stating on the basis that we believe this is a 4-bedroom property.
Yeah.
It should be recommended for review on the grounds of insufficient parking.
Absolutely, thank you. So can we make sure that's clarified in the response, Chief Officer? Okay, so I'm the proposer, Karen, all this the seconder. I think we've got a show of hands, and we all saying yes, we all agree with that. No, I've not the show of hands before. Okay, thank you. I think it's because we got into a conversation with Councillor Hawley on the matter of ensuring that it's actually specified. Thank you. Okay, right. So we're happy with that one. Lovely. Thank you, everybody. Let me close that one down so I don't lose it. Those are the 2 previous 38 Chamberlain Way. Right. Okay. Moving on to SND 2026-0209. Mr. and Mrs. Weir, 14 Palmerston Way. Close that down. Find our location. Yeah. Right, so 14 Palmerston Way. It's a proposed extension to a garage to form a utility room and a conversion of the garage. Form utility and conversion of the garage. Proposed wraparound pitched roof over the existing garage and canopy. So it's the construction of additional utility room behind the garage and the conversion of the existing garage into a hobby and storage room. Garage and utility room to have a single pitched roof over. The location plan indicates off-road space for 3 vehicles to the front of the property. So there was no pre-application advice, did not, as you can see in the green belt, and being a household application, there's no B&G applicable. The materials, the walls are existing facing brick is proposed to match. The roof existing grey concrete tiles is proposed they will match, and the windows white UPVC is proposed they will match. The only applicable neighbourhood plan policy is Des 1 design. As all the proposed materials match the existing or new extension, and the existing garage will now have a pitched roof. I believe it complies with good design, and therefore we should just send it through with no adverse comments.
Agreed.
Very good.
Well, happy with that? Can I propose that? Are you seconding that, Councillor? Okay, fine. Yes. Okay, so in that case, right. Yes. Thank you for that procedural amendment. Can I have a proposal, please? Okay. Proposal, Councillor Jones, seconded by Councillor Renfrew. Can I have a show of hands, please? Thank you. That was a simple one. What I should have mentioned is that in terms of reference to the neighbourhood plan working group, I was proposing that the previous application, which we were refusing, should be referred to the Neighbourhood Plan Working Group as a sanity check, just for them to consider to ensure effectively a policing of our standards would be useful.
To be quite honest, I don't think it needs to be, because effectively what we've said is that it doesn't meet. Therefore,
I will, as the chair of the previous chair of that working group, I shall defer to your suggestion and we'll ignore that then. Okay, right, so. That's a simple one occasionally, isn't it? Let's move on to, oh gosh, another slightly complicated one. SND 2026-0196, 51A Park Lane. This has been subject to many planning applications.
Have a Google Maps of it as well. I can't
We can.
place it.
We can have a Google Map. So what I'm going to do though is I'm not going to, because I remember when I did this last time, it didn't actually allow me to, it wouldn't find the,
You want the postcode?
it's okay, no, for some reason, it wasn't recognising 51A.
I've been 53 then.
There you go, right. There we go, 51A Park Lane. Right, so, let's find a,
So it's the one on the corner of Woodland Street.
yeah, it's the corner one, okay? I think that might be the plan that you want to look at. Okay, right, so, this is an application for for the variation of conditions in relation to SND 2023-0379, which was approved on appeal, having been initially refused. There was no pre-application advice. It is not in the Green Belt and BNG is applicable. Right. So essentially, the variations of conditions that were agreed at appeal were as follows. The requesting variation of is referencing drawing numbers to be the condition to be removed. Condition 2, conditions 3, 4, and 6 to remove the conditions. Condition 10 to remove the condition if appropriate, if new topsoil is planned and provide contamination testing data. 12 to remove condition 12, and condition 14 to edit the drawing reference with new drawing numbers created for clarity. Right, it has a interesting and checkered history.
It's not the corner one, is it? It's the one next to it.
It's not the corner one. It's the one with the garden that runs
Next
behind the corner one.
one.
So let's go over here. Okay. Right. There we go. That one there. Okay. Right. So the original application, SMD 2023-0379, was to construct a 2-bedroom bungalow within the curtilage of 51A. That was refused, but then overturned on appeal with conditions agreed. The application to vary conditions is to add 2 additional. There was an application to vary the condition to add 2 additional chalet-style upstairs bedrooms, which was also refused. And when that went to appeal, but that appeal was dismissed. The current application is to vary conditions on this application. So essentially, the plan was originally to build a 2-bedroom bungalow here. The variation that was originally refused, but then got through appeal. The variation was put into that to turn it into effectively a 3-bedroom dormer style bungalow. That was refused and the appeal was rejected. This is simply a minor change to the layout of the original approved on appeal 2-bedroom bungalow. I don't think that any of our neighbourhood plan policies apply, so I'm recommending that we simply refer to the planning officer for a decision with no additional comments. Councillor Hawley.
yeah, well, I looked at it, it was as clear as mud, so I hope it's going to go along with it.
So are you happy to propose?
Well, I think effectively what you're suggesting to refer to the planning officer.
Yeah.
is the ideal way of doing it.
Okay, thank you. I've got councillor Smith and councillor Redfern. Councillor Smith, Madam Mayor, and councillor Rogers.
Just want to declare an interest because I've just realised who the applicant is.
Okay,
That person has done some work in a professional capacity.
okay, right. So you're declaring an interest in this one. Okay. Does that mean you're going to abstain from the vote? Okay, right. Thank you. So I've got councillor Redfern and then councillor Rogers. Councillor Redfern.
Oh, they access this.
They are proposing the access will be a driveway down here. I was hoping that when I pulled this drawing up, it would actually give me the drawing that I could then show on there. Well, I can actually put the drawing over here because that's the design of the property. So you can see it's now back to being a low, it doesn't have the dormers on it. That's the layout inside, 2-bedroom, and hopefully this will give us, yeah, there you go. So let me just reduce that down a bit. So essentially the driveway will come down this side of number 51A to access here. They have a separate drive over here. Okay. That answer your question? Yeah,
That's a question.
brilliant. Okay, councillor Rogers.
It's the same question actually, to be fair, but now seeing that, I know if they had access onto Woodland Street, it comes straight onto the bus stop.
Yes,
It's a bit
this-
difficult.
This is the bus stop.
That's the bus
That's the
stop, yeah.
substation. This is, it says gas governor, Mr. Gas Governor for
Yeah.
gas supply. So again, I think that there isn't the opportunity to come through this way and say that the bus stop's there.
No, it was, access was my concern, really.
Okay, so I've had a proposer to go with the recommendation I made in terms of referring to the planning officer, seconding for councillor Jones. Have a show of hands, please. Okay, and that is essentially going to be referred to the planning officer with no additional comment because what's the comment? Right, and again, not bothering to send that to the Neighbourhood Plan working group. Right, let's move on. I did have the previous planning application if you wanted to view them, but I think it's fairly clear on that one. Right. Now I think we're going to get controversial again. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Right. So I think this may well be land. This is an application SMD 2026-0199. Mr. and Mrs. Actually, no, that's never right one. No, I'm looking at the wrong one. SMD 2026-0213. Mr. and Mrs. Kuchkari for the former car park on the land at Mount Cop. So, let's see.
It used to be the public,
It is. It used to be the
Top of Tower Hill Road.
right. Okay. I think again this is another one where it's let's try the postcode.
It's across the road.
It's not. It's further up. It's on the other side of the road, but further up from the pub.
Right, it's used to be a pub.
No, it's not going. It's not going to for me again. So let's go.
No.
Back out.
Tower Hill Road and turn left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's-
It used to be definitely mountain.
Okay.
Yeah, Bolton one.
That's square there.
It's this square here. Okay, right. So it's permission in principle for the erection of 2 dwellings on the site of a former car park on the land at Congleton Road, Mount Coffin. No pre-application advice. It is, as you can see, in the green belt. There's no PNG applicable at this stage because it's only permission in principle stage. As I say, it's permission in principle to construct 2 self-built homes on the former car park of Mount Coffin. The indicative plan that they submitted with this shows 2 detached properties. Simply for illustrative purposes. The pub is actually, I think, up here.
No.
That's on the- Yeah.
Can we see the indicative plan, haven't we?
Yes, you can see the indicative plan. Indicative proposed site plan. So there you go. So basically, two detached houses on it. Okay, right. So, in terms of the design and access statement that's been provided with this, it's quite extensive. The land was approved for use as a car park in 1982. At that point in time, the officer noted that the approval would weaken future resistance to development on that site. In SFD 2024-0156 application, for a new garage was refused on the basis of the contemporary Greenbelt regulations at the time. The key points of the new application and the design and access statement is using the grey belt designation and the housing supply level in the district. The report argues that the land is in fact brownfield as its previously developed site, that the site does not serve the five principal purposes of green belt and so should be classified as grey belt, and therefore the development is not inappropriate. The only neighbourhood plan policies that would impact this are how 1 and how 2. How 1 and how 2 I think will both be complied with in that self-built housing is a category that's specifically welcomed within the neighbourhood plan. And the fact that there are only 2 properties would mean it would qualify for within the infill guideline. However, there are other things to say. I would also make the note that there are currently no objections to the development register on the SMDC planning portal. However, I would think that the Westport councillors may wish to call this in for a committee decision as this is a further grey belt test, and the 2 previous applications for permission in principle have both been refused, although they were a larger scale. So at the moment, the recommendation would be to refer it back to the planning officer to determine if the proposed development is appropriate in the green belt, and if the arguments indicating the land to be grey belt are in fact valid. So I've got Councillor Hawley, Jones, Rogers, Yates. Councillor Hawley?
Yeah, first thing is it ain't infill. Basically, infill is when you've got a property and something, and effectively you're going to use the land in between, and that is not infill. As far as grey belt concerned, that actually definitely could come into the criteria of grey belt because it was used as a car park. So on that basis, I don't see any reason to reject it. And basically, what I would say, it's far as it doesn't compromise the green belt in any way, as far as the planning office is concerned, then I would say that go ahead with it. I don't see a problem. The only thing we're saying is that basically it doesn't come under the idea of infill, because obviously infill is when you've got a property and you've got a gap in between them, and that doesn't constitute that.
Yeah, I would say that they are arguing infill on the grounds that there is a property opposite it.
Yeah.
And therefore it's could be deemed to be part of the same cluster. However, I will also accept your point that it doesn't strictly define as greenfield.
As far as the neighbourhood plan is concerned, that does not constitute infill.
Okay, right. So in that case, we're saying that's not infill. So I'm happy to accept that.
As far as I can say, go ahead with it.
Okay.
If that's a proposal, I'll second you.
I think we've got 3 other speakers first. So Councillor Jones.
Yeah, I agree with everything Councillor always just said. Yeah, I've had a little bit of exposure to grey belt and green belt regulations over the last 2 or 3 months. And if anything's grey belt, that's flipping grey belt, absolutely grey belt. It's grey belt, it's self-built, there's no local objections.
Yeah.
There's no need to call it in unless there are any local objections, quite frankly, I wouldn't bother.
I think that was, yeah.
You're right, David, it's not infill, but that's by the by. I'll put it to NAC. It's self-built, it's two new houses. Need houses, and that's exactly the sort of place we should be building them, and not on green fields in Biddulph.
Absolutely, I think I'm right. Councillor Rogers and then Councillor Yates.
Yeah, the office is now going to be used as it was in the past as a car park to the public house, with the public house and no dwelling. So it's a piece of
It's
ground.
subject to an application to be a dwelling at the moment.
Okay, subject, yeah, okay. So it's looking like it'll never used as a car park again. So what will it be used for? It seems to fit the criteria, grey belt. We don't seem to have any valid objections from neighbours at the moment. So as the others have said, I don't see a massive problem with it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, councillor Yates, you did have your hand up a moment ago.
Yes, I haven't been lobbied as a West Ward councillor, and I wouldn't intend to call us in at all unless I was strongly lobbied for good reason. If anybody had turned up to the local plan steering group, you would be alarmed of what is grey belt. And this absolutely categorically fits the criteria of grey belt as far as I'm concerned. I certainly accept it isn't infill because it's online. It's an extension to a site. It's not an infill site. Absolutely. Well, I don't see any. It's far enough away from the junction. I think highways will probably make a comment about visibility displays because it is a little bit of a slightly awkward position, but that can be that can be accommodated. I think we probably would expect them to want a short section of public footpath to act as a visibility display, so to speak. And I think there's the size and space to do that. I am actually encouraged that the outline design, we'll have to watch this if it does come forward as a plan. The two houses which have proposed a self-build have got a reasonable footprint, and I think that is very important for making sure that any vehicles are very much off the road, and it allows that little bit of space for the visibility displays because they do shoot across Collins Road coming in from the Neighbourhood side.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I think the general feeling is that we've got no objections to this, but obviously it does need, I believe, refer to the planning officer because of the green belt, grey belt definition. However, councillor Hawley, in terms of our infill policy, it's housing development for small infill sites within or adjacent to settlement boundaries. So I think that would be deemed as adjacent to the settlement boundary. So I think technically it would qualify as infill. Just being pedantic, I'm sorry. So, but I think if we send it, are we all happy? I think what we're doing is sending it forward with no adverse comment and refer to the planning officer.
Just yeah. The other night, I actually went past the mowing, and it certainly looks like a house to me now.
Yeah, right.
The other thing is that as far as the road, yes, cars should be off the road. But when you consider it was a car park before, then basically you can't be concerned about cars coming in and out because that's what it was there for. People were coming in and out of it. As far as access,
it was just coming back on that through the chair for me.
Yes,
but the car parking provision was such that you could see the visibility. I'm just a little bit concerned that development could be a little bit closer. The cars would be very close to the road, and I think you do. I think we're looking at modern times, and you have the opportunity of doing things right.
Yeah, I think
But I'm not saying this is something which is objectionable.
only indicative purposes to show scale, and therefore when the plans come in for it with the detail of the place, that's where the highways consultation will have to come in. Councillor Jones, you don't put
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Once again, Councillor Yates, we've all over my hand being up, but never mind.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, as regards local objections, they're probably welcoming it, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I'd much prefer to have two bungalows opposite me than a pub car park with people falling down the pub at 11 o'clock at night, slamming doors and shouting shrill. So I suspect there won't be any other objections. And it's NAC. I don't know why we need to refer it anyway. It's NAC.
I think, yes, so the proposal is to send it out with no adverse comment, but referring it to the planning officer to determine that whether it is appropriate grey belt development. Is that, you're happy with that? You're proposing that?
Yeah.
Can I have a second for that?
So
Yeah.
seconded.
Thank you. Yes, it is actually. You're right. Thank you. You mentioned that earlier. So, councillor, may I show of hands, please? Wonderful. Thank you. Right. We're nearly there, honestly. Right. Planning application 2026-0199 Overton Hall on Overton Road. I can throw this up on the ground on the application, but is this a supplementary?
Yes, yeah.
It was a supplementary, wasn't it? Yes, sorry. I didn't make a note on mine. Notes they were supplementary. So, right. I'm sorry, we moved into item 8, supplementary. The supplementary that we received, which was on the list sent to you, SMD 2026-0199. So, I think we'll know where Overton Hall is, but okay, so there we go. That's the one we discussed last week, the barns, or a few weeks ago, the last barns. This is the location. Right, it's fairly straightforward. I believe it's the installation of a new sewage treatment plant with associated drainage. No pre-application advice. It is in the green belt. VNG, I don't believe it's applicable. It's not quite clear because of the nature of the application. So, summary is that it's to divert the foul drains from the existing shared septic tank to a new legislation compliant standard design sewage treatment plant to enable the sale of the property. Materials wise, it's a standard design self-contained Clargester BioAir IPS sewage treatment plant. There's a lovely picture in the proposal presented with us. In terms of the design and access statement main point, 2020 legislation requires a higher environmental standard septic tank discharge, necessitate the installation of a new sewage treatment plant to allow discharge into a watercourse such as ditch, river or stream. It's proposed to intercept the existing foul drain and divert it under the drive to a new sewage treatment plant buried under the front lawn. This will discharge compliant waste into an existing land drain running into the Overton Road drainage ditch, therefore under the culvert under Overton Road and into the field beyond. The unit is sized to suit the anticipated occupancy of Overton Hall. There is a heritage statement as part of the design and access statement, suggesting impact will be minimal and the drainage system will be buried underground. There may be some temporary impact during the works, but that would be only during the works. No neighbourhood plan policies are applicable to this. The two remaining properties, Overton Hall Barns, essentially the foul drain comes out of here and then comes across to Overton Hall Barns. They're going to take it under their drive and bury it in the grass there. The two remaining properties will continue to use the septic tank until a sale falls through the installation of a new legislative compliance system. So I will anticipate sometime in the not too distant future, if those properties come up for sale, we'll have a similar application for those. Overton Hall is a listed building. So I would recommend referring it to the planning officer, because I think it's beyond our expertise to judge this, but that they should involve the heritage officer prior to approval. I've got Councillor Smith. Did you have your hand up for? And then I've got Councillors Rogers and Hawley. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, just to propose to defer to the planning officer for compliance.
Heritage compliance. Okay. So we've got a proposer there. So I've got Councillor Rogers and Councillor. Did you want to speak or were you?
Well, I'll second that because the discharge has got to be obviously monitored very, very closely. I think that's the situation.
Okay, so that's proposer. That's a second. And Councillor Hawley, did you make a point?
So I've got no adverse comments on this as long as the heritage officer approved it.
Yeah.
That's basically what.
Okay. Councillor Smith, were you happy to have that sent with no adverse comments, but referring to the planning officer to ensure heritage compliance?
Sound, yeah.
Okay, so I've got proposed to that and a second to that. Can I have a show of hands, please? Brilliant. So, we happy with that?
Oh, yes.
Lovely. Right. Moving on to item 9, decisions received. Right. So, Raghall Farm, I think we were sending it through with no adverse comments, recommending ecological wildlife surveys. Planning permission has been refused for that. Development considers inappropriate in the green belt on the evaluation as it has no exceptions. So that's been refused. The old engine house, which we were recommending, I believe, sending through with no adverse comments, that has been approved. So we'll welcome that for the that heritage asset being made useful. Similarly, the listed building consent application. The land between Roger Road and Hog Lane, we were recommending refusal, and that has in fact been refused by the commission. In principle, was refused. I think that was something of a lot of public concern.
Just a bit.
Yeah. And those are the only results that we've received. Okay, so moving on to item 10, we have an appeal which is related to 16 Jubilee Close, Bill ST8 6HQ. Councillor Smith has been lobbying and would like to speak on this, and not a member, not a member of the committee. So in terms of the summary application, this was 16 Jubilee Close. It was a proposed two-storey side extension. We recommended refusal because of non-compliance with design and car parking and movement, and a question regarding sustainable drainage. In that, the original design that we were presented with had grey cladding, which was, we believed was out of character as a local building material, and therefore would be obtrusive and say out of character. The design in terms of there's two in terms of car parking movement. It showed 2 additional rooms, but it didn't classify them whether bedrooms or not. So I was querying whether or not it would have to need to have 3 parking spaces. I think at that point we queried that, and because there was no information on drainage, we didn't know what was going on. So the planning officer has deemed that it's refused it on the grounds of quoting R-1 amongst others, in the inappropriate materials and construction. The chestnut wall cladding that was originally proposed that we were judging on was replaced with black render in a later submitted design. That was also considered to be inappropriate. The plans accepted as a 3-bedroom off-street parking. So they accepted the plans as a 3-bedroom with off-street parking wasn't compromised. Therefore, they weren't considering our DES2, and there's no mention of sustainable drainage. I believe that it is a bit of a matter of taste, and we're not here to judge taste. We're here to judge against the planning guidelines. The materials are still very different to the local vernacular and would be inappropriate. So I do not believe that our decision to recommend refusal for non-compliance, I believe that is still valid. That's the situation so far. Before I hear from the committee, can I ask, please, are we taking people forward, speaking for it off the committee before comments from the committee? Can I point to principle on policy on that?
Not to do much, because of your discretion, but you know the council authority specifically.
Yes.
Yeah, mine's a point of information.
Yes.
Basically, when I looked at the planning officer's report on this, he said that there had been no comment from Billtown Council.
Yeah.
That we've seen that before, and I think
But the reason I'm saying that
Yeah.
is because obviously he didn't take what we thought into consideration.
but he was specifically quoting the neighbourhood plan policy there too.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's one. So and again, I think we've seen that in the past. So thank you for reminding me about that. I think we need to ensure that they are actually receiving our comments in a timely manner, because
I can assure you that.
yeah, well, yes,
It all sounds there.
no, I understand that. So,
I know what you do.
so I think picking up the councillor Hawley's comments, do we think we could have a polite reminder to them to?
I just send a little note to you.
Yes, that would be nice. I
Do you
think,
know who the officer is, Chair?
no, I haven't checked that, but we can look at the
I can probably guess. But
right, hang on. The case officer in this case is Hannah Varley.
oh, don't know it then. So all right.
Okay.
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
Okay, right. So I think yes, a gentle reminder. We don't need to sharpen the stick at this point. Okay.
Oh yes. It's got to go on, so it's not
Absolutely blunt. Right. Okay. So, Councillor Salt.
Yeah.
If you would like to speak on
So
this.
I'm not asking you to change your decision tonight, because any new submissions won't be considered by the planning officer, the planning inspector anyway. We can't submit any new stuff. But I just want it placed on record that it was quite embarrassing for me as a town councillor and a district councillor when I went round to speak to the resident a couple of Sundays ago, because I said, oh, this has not come through our planning committee, because had it gone through the planning committee, I could have had the opportunity to call it in and been more familiar with it. Well, it turns out it has, and I was going off the information that that was on the website, that we'd not been we'd not commented on the application. So that's very embarrassing. That's the first point. And that's not a fault of this committee. That's a fault of SMDC. So thank you for bringing that up, Councillor Hall. It's really important. However, in terms of in my opinion, from what I've seen, they've bent over backwards to comply with the planning officer and sought advice about the different types of materials that they could use on this extension. The gentleman's, then there's an adult couple living in the house. There are no children. The idea of the cladding was turned down by the planning officer. Then they got a different type of cladding and that was turned down. Then he went into the black render that they saw, and they handed in the application, the updated application 2 weeks before it was considered, and nobody got back to them, so they thought it was okay because they would have been prepared to change their minds again. So it was an issue, I think, with the planning officer not getting back to the residents themselves. In terms of not complying with design, there's bungalows there that use cladding. It's opposite the sports injury clinic that was the chemist, that was the dentist, that has got effectively black bricks. So it faces a building with black bricks that is very unattractive. You've got a roof with massive black solar panels sitting behind. The house itself sits like 3 meters down from the footway. So in actual fact, in terms of height and visibility, it's not going to have a massive impact on the street scene. There's been no neighbourhood complaints from the houses that all face it. There are multiple examples, and they've taken lots of photographs to show to the planning inspector when they look at it, as to the type of cladding and render that have been used on other buildings in the vicinity, including along Wells Street, that faces the sports injury clinic, where all those buildings, all those ex-council properties have got various different colours of render and they don't match. So he's really disappointed, I think, with Staffordshire Moorlands District Council. Now, obviously, you can't change your mind tonight because it's in law, there's no point, but I think it's really important to bring that to your attention, especially when considering what's in the street scene and what surrounds it when we're making decisions about materials, because just 100 metres away, you've got Wells Street with all the different coloured render. You've got the sports injury clinic with bricks that have gone black with horrible white stuff that's hanging down. You've got the doctor's surgery. So it's really not out of character with the rest of that street. Anyway, I digress. So that's black brick.
Yes,
Facing it.
I see your point. Okay.
And if you turn it round, where the extension will be, it drops down about 3 meters there. He's already got black rendered.
Yes, we did actually discuss that meeting, the fact that while there was a degree of that the port at that point we thought the porch was clad, but it was significantly less intrusive than a large 2-story extension.
Black solar panels on the house opposite. So I just think it's probably really important to have a good look at. I'm not on this planning committee, I'm not telling you how to do your jobs, but when you're making decisions about materials, to actually look at Google Maps and see what's around.
We did at the time. We did at the time, and I think the decision at the time was that a large 2-story black extension on this side would be out of character with the rest of the street scene.
And just bear in mind that it was going to use brown. It was a chestnut brown, that actually better matched the colour of that bricks, and that was turned down by the planning officer.
I think in terms of the guidelines that we're working within, which is the Neighbourhood Plan and the NPPF guidelines, the change in material is something very different to the local vernacular, would have made it non-compliant with the NPPF guidelines and with our own policies. But I acknowledge the fact that it is, I think at the time we discussed that this is a difference between taste and style and compliance with guidelines. So thank you for your contribution and advocacy. Do you have any other comments regarding, yes, Councillor Holding?
Yeah, I'm sort of thinking, I mean, basically, nobody's actually objecting to his extension.
No, they're not. It's the materials.
It's effectively the rendering.
Yeah.
And as far as I can see, if he's built it in a brick, you get it.
Yeah. But he says that, sorry to go through the chair, he says that the type of brick he could get now compared to that brick would look totally different anyway, and it'd look vile. So, and he's a builder by trade, so he doesn't know what he's talking about.
I think he potentially he needs to come and discuss it with the planning officer and to some degree.
He tried.
As far as what he's actually got, I would say that we just go along with what we said originally. Sorry.
Well, you have to anyway, because you can't change.
We can do.
But they wouldn't accept it.
But we basically, I think we go along with what we had originally and leave it at that.
Yeah, that's essentially the conclusion I came to, is that essentially there's no reason for us to make any additional comment. What we originally said, and therefore there's nothing to do for us. Yeah. Councillor Smith.
I think it does raise something sort of parallel to that whereas we can't change our opinion, we can't, as Bill Town Council, advocate for the people in the town that have poor experience with an SMDC planning decision. You know, and that we can.
I think that is a separate matter, and I think it's a role that the district councillors on this committee can probably take on board, because they will have access to the offices at the district council planning department. So I think that's a good learning point to make a note of. Thank you, Councillor Smith, Madam Mayor.
Just quickly, is it just me that thinks it's already out of character with the rest of the houses in that street?
Well, because of this.
Because of that and the black window frame.
You know what
I mean? He's obviously got a posh shop for black.
Well, I think
He's put that black windows in.
I think the point is.
Don't blame him. It's both the
I'm
house.
I'm not decrying anything Councillor Stoll said.
I think
due diligence has been done and there's now more to be said on it.
I think
At the moment,
that's not within the remit of this committee to discuss. Councillor Nick, do you have something constructive to add?
Yes, I do. I wouldn't say it's strongly in defence of any particular officer who's making the decision, but we have to be careful as district councillors on how we approach this, because at the end of the day, planning is not about opinions. It's about factual regulation, which is set down in a very strict framework, and the decisions of the planning committee at Staffordshire Moorlands District Council, they act as a quasi-judicial committee outside of their normal roles of councillors. So you don't want to be seen to, even if it's intended or not, be exerting undue influence, which isn't based on very strict and very well documented guidelines. I think it's relevant to raise the issue about, you know, our comments on perhaps being considered, or perhaps then we would request improved engagement. But I do worry about effectively calling judgments and rationale.
I don't think that's the point that Councillor Smith was making. I think it's more a case of in terms of the warning, the experience that Councillor